Science? A 16-year-old, on her wedding night, doesn't cuddle with her wife, but instead runs off to a deserted palace to search for treasure. Only because she's a woman disguised as a man, replacing her twin brother as a scapegoat and ascending the throne. Facing her beautiful new wife, she can only choose to escape. She's even more afraid of being discovered and executed. It's said this palace was secretly built by the former crown prince to imprison his favorite disciple, Yi Rong. Looking at this desolate, abandoned palace, Yi Rong figured there probably wasn't anything valuable. Just as she was about to find a corner to hide from the guard's search, she suddenly heard footsteps approaching. Everyone, stay alert and search thoroughly. Gillen walked straight to a mud-covered statue and scoffed, "What ugly things are these?" Just after saying this, he plopped down on Yi Rong. Soon a guard reported, "Your Excellency, Left Prime Minister, we have searched the East Palace thoroughly, but haven't found the Emperor. Perhaps the Emperor is no longer in the palace. Search elsewhere." Watching the guards leave, Yi Rong cautiously slipped away. Just as she was secretly rejoicing at not being discovered, Wei Ling's voice came from behind her. "Your Majesty, don't think this minister is blind like them. Allow me to tie to your Majesty's robes and wash away this mud." He said this while extending a slender hand towards Yi Rong. Little did he know, standing before him was a woman. Better to believe there are ghosts in this world than to believe Wei Ling's words. The world spun, and Yi Rong was pushed into the lake. Wei Ling smiled faintly to, "If you like this place so much, then stay here forever." Past events flashed before her eyes. Yi Rong saw her mother holding her small hand, walking down the street. Although she preferred embroidery, she was forced to study. She also saw the woman who claimed to be her birth mother, taking her away from her mother. "Finally, I can bring all the treasures home to Mother. Mother won't have to sew and cook for others anymore." Am I dreaming? But I was clearly killed by that man. How can I still be dreaming? Yi Rong abruptly opened her eyes and saw several tearful faces. Disguised as a man, she hadn't expected to have a second personality. It had appeared online, so to speak, as she was near death, saving her life. Just as Yi Rong was wondering why her brother-in-law wanted to kill her, a quick-witted palace maid explained. Lord Wei Ling entered the palace at age 11. You harassed him, made him kneel as a statue for punishment, and even carved words on him. Yi Rong was dumbfounded. It's that damned brother's doing again. With wolves in front and tigers behind, Yi Rong was scared and wanted to retreat. Since I'm here, I might as well run. As Yi Rong packed her bags, preparing to escape, her second personality emerged to stop her. No, you have to stay. If it weren't for me taking over last night, you would have drowned. You liar. Why should I believe you're my second self? What if you're a wandering soul trying to possess my body? Rude. Who are you calling a wandering soul? Who saved your life yesterday? I know about your flat-chested body and how even disguised as a man, no one would suspect you're the Emperor. Not only that, I also know all your secrets, like your true parentage. Yi Rong put on a brave face. What do you want in exchange for keeping my secret? Simple. I hear Lord Wei Ling is not yet married. If you can make him fall in love with you. Yi Rong couldn't understand. After she rejected that voice, it mysteriously disappeared. My body, my choice. In the end, Yi Rong decided to take the carriage back home. Meanwhile, Wei Ling learned from his subordinates that Yi Rong hadn't died. Accidentally fell into the water. How thoughtful of His Majesty to even provide me with an excuse. Tonight, I will enter the palace and see if he truly has what it takes. On the other side, Yi Rong sat in a shabby carriage traveling down the street. Finally out of the palace, Yi Rong leaned back against her various treasures, sighing in relief. Looking at each precious item, she drooled. Hopefully, these will fetch a good price. Soon, however, the driver informed her they were stuck in traffic. Yi Rong pulled back the curtain and saw Ingchun Pavilion holding a promotional event. Suddenly, that damned second personality took over again. Just as Yi Rong's second personality was enjoying fine wine and beautiful company, Wei Ling appeared at Ingchun Pavilion with a grim expression. I have come on behalf of the old madam to retrieve you. Yi Rong, replying to Kota, could hardly recognize the person before her. Your face looks a lot like my older brother-in-law's. Just as punchable as that scoundrel. Yi Rong patted Wei Ling's handsome face. She even burped out a song reeking of alcohol. The enraged Wei Ling thought, this drunken, rambling mutt needs to go home. The next morning, Yi Rong woke up with no memory of the previous night. She knew her second personality was to blame. It seemed returning home was out of the question for now. Meanwhile, the Empress Dowager and Huo Weilin were discussing the reason for Yi Rong's carousing. Perhaps His Majesty acts this way because the harem is empty. We should begin preparations for a selection of imperial consorts. Wei Ling's words startled both the Empress Dowager and Yi Rong. The Empress Dowager immediately objected, but couldn't articulate a reason. Seeing this, Wei Ling grew suspicious again. Could the Emperor have some hidden affliction? Or perhaps it's related to his multiple resurrections. Meanwhile, the Empress Dowager and Yi Rong exchanged glances, urging each other to find a way to handle the situation. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Wei Ling walked over to Yi Rong's bedside. "Your Majesty refuses to take a consort. Is there some difficulty you can't speak of?" Knowing this was her last chance, Yi Rong closed her eyes, extended her hand, and took a gamble. She blurted out, "Because I only like you. From the moment we met, I decided I would marry no one but you." Throwing caution to the wind, her fingers began to caress Wei Ling's cheek. Everyone was stunned into silence by Yi Rong's dramatic performance. Wei Ling was also momentarily dumbfounded, leaving her vulnerable as Yi Rong swept her into a princess carry. At 16 years old, this was Yi Rong's first setback. After her passionate public confession and the impulsive princess carry, she made a startling discovery. Wei Ling's waist was even smaller than her own. Yi Rong's mind flashed back to her first time entering the palace, as excited as a kid in a candy store. The palace food was even more delicious than a five-star hotel's, and she even saw ladies in red dresses. Yi Rong had thought entering the palace meant a life of luxury and privilege. But now, to survive, she had shamelessly confessed to a man who had once tried to kill her. Life was truly absurd, a tangled mess. "You smell of her perfume. Or is it my nose playing tricks on me?" Back at his residence, Wei Ling frantically ordered his servants to burn all the clothes he had worn in the palace. He stepped into his 500-square-foot pool, scrubbing the places Yi Rong had touched. But no amount of body wash could erase Yi Rong's lingering scent. Thinking about Yi Rong's bizarre, out-of-character behavior, Wei Ling frowned. Could she still be fixated on what happened all those years ago? His thoughts were interrupted before he could dwell on it. He was about to scold the servant who had so rudely disturbed him, but then he saw the palace eunuch standing at the door. "His Majesty, concerned for your comfort after your bath, has sent me to present you with these refreshing items." The eunuch mockingly displayed an array of fashionable harem garments. Wei Ling thought, that damned emperor still hasn't given up. He clenched his fists, barely restraining himself from unleashing a torrent of abuse. His guards lacked his restraint. "My lord, why don't we just throw them all out?" Wei Ling raised a hand to stop them. "Wait. Please convey my heartfelt gratitude to His Majesty for his thoughtful gift. I shall return the favor." A satisfied smile played on his lips. Back in the palace, Yi Rong was tallying expenses, lamenting her own extravagance. Those harem items cost 30 taels just for the tailoring, and each piece is made by a renowned artisan. Everything costs money. Social niceties are truly expensive. Suddenly, a palace maid rushed in, shouting, "Your Majesty." Terrible news. Eunuch Li and the others have returned. Yi Rong feigned indifference. "Oh, they've returned. What's the fuss about?" The maid insisted, "You must see for yourself, Your Majesty." Eunuch Li and the others entered, dressed in the harem garments, weeping and wailing. "Your Majesty, you must avenge us. Our innocence is ruined." The sight was a devastating blow to Yi Rong. It was truly too much to bear. Meanwhile, the Empress Dowager was enjoying her leisurely life when she noticed the returning guards. "Why have you returned without the Empress?" she asked. The guard respectfully replied, "Reporting to Your Majesty, the Empress is staying at the Wei residence. Fearing discovery by Lord Wei, we returned first to report." A shrewd palace maid observed, "The Empress is likely Lord Wei's weakness. As long as he's around, Your Majesty and the Empress Dowager can sleep soundly." The Empress Dowager took a sip of tea. "I do wish to summon him back to the palace soon." As soon as the words left her mouth, the officials below immediately followed the Empress Dowager's lead. Indeed, His Majesty has been giving Lord Wei far too much leeway. It's truly excessive. We need the Empress back to manage things. Yes, no wonder Lord Wei is so angry this time. The Empress Dowager is truly wise. This humble servant will go and invite the Empress back at once. The Empress Dowager's face was full of question marks. "What I'm talking about is the Ingchun Pavilion incident." "What are you all talking about? Is it that brat causing trouble again? That good-for-nothing girl is completely out of control." The Empress Dowager's roars echoed through the palace. "Preposterous." Wei Ling, for no reason at all, knowing he has a wife and children, Wei Ling pulled out a 40-meter-long broadsword. "Your Highness, please turn around." It's difficult for this minister to strike like this. Who knew that in the next second, Yi Rong would burst into loud, theatrical sobs. "Don't you want our children anymore?" Wei Ling looked at the suddenly erratic Yi Rong, wondering what kind of act this was. Looking down, he saw several small hands tugging at his clothes. Teary-eyed children pleaded with Daddy Wei Ling not to do it. Wei Ling was completely bewildered, looking at the 3 small children and 1 adult kneeling and huddled on the ground. Tears welled up in his eyes. He was bombarded by the sounds of children calling Daddy on one side, and Yi Rong's accusations of, "Your heart is so cruel, my lord," on the other. This played on repeat, endlessly, until his head was about to explode. Then, in the next second, he woke up, realizing it was just a dream. Wei Ling gasped for breath, his neck and shoulders stiff and sore. "It seems I need to quickly investigate the truth behind the deceased emperor's revival. Otherwise, I won't even be able to sleep peacefully." Ever since Yi Rong's Princess Carrie, Wei Ling had been frequently dreaming of the deceased emperor bullying him as a child. One moment he was working, the next he was asleep. It not only severely affected his mood, but also drastically reduced his work efficiency. Wei Ling then wrote a 50,000-word love letter, inviting Yi Rong to go on an outing. "I don't believe the deceased emperor won't reveal his true colors this time." Meanwhile, in the palace, Yi Rong was arguing with her second personality. "I can't stand it. You're clearly Lord Wei's future wife. Don't you have any awareness of that?" Yi Rong's original personality grumbled softly. "You're the one who's obsessed with that lunatic. Why should I be aware?" She pulled out a portrait of her idol, her eyes sparkling, that I think the junior minister is even more handsome than Wei Ling. "Look, see for yourself." The second personality was indignant. "Are you blind, or is your brain broken? How can you even compare him to my Lord Wei?" She launched into a tirade against Yi Rong, ranting about Wei Ling's superiority, until a servant announced the arrival of a letter from a certain lord, putting an end to the heated battle. So uncultured, they can't even understand a love letter. The palace maid, tasked with reading Wei Ling's letter, took a whole hour, her mouth parched, before finishing. "Your Majesty, the content is like this." Yi Rong rolled her eyes that it's just an outing. Did he really need to write so much? She stood up and told the palace maid, a ruler should share in leisure activities with their ministers to foster understanding in governing the nation. "Tell him I accept, and will be there on time tomorrow." Unbeknownst to Wei Ling, Yi Rong had anticipated his plan. "Humph, he wants to test me again. I'm already prepared. Going on a date, but arranged to be surrounded by 18 male models. How to handle this? Urgent. Waiting online." Before departing, Yi Rong carefully checked her equipment. "This is knockout powder. This is a switching potion. This is..." The guard, looking at the small white bottles on the table, asked a crucial question. "Your Majesty, you're just going to the Wei residence. What are you taking these for?" Yi Rong smiled knowingly. "This is the Wei residence, after all. How can I go without being fully prepared? There are always treacherous subjects who want to harm me. This is just a precaution." The carriage soon arrived at the Wei residence. Yi Rong eagerly jumped out. Opening the Wei residence gate, she announced, "Lord Wei, I've come to pick you up personally." Her words were cut short by the sight that greeted her. A pool filled with male models, each with 18-pack abs. Yi Rong instantly forgot what she was there for. It wasn't until the guard also exclaimed, "Your Majesty, there's so many people here," that Yi Rong snapped back to reality. "And why, Lord, didn't we agree to go on an outing together?" Wei Ling was lounging lazily by the pool. "Your Majesty, before an outing, one must bathe and change, mustn't they? Why don't you join us?" To avoid revealing her gender, Yi Rong quickly declined, "That I'm feeling a bit unwell today. I'll just head back." Hearing this, the male models immediately swarmed around Yi Rong, their faces full of concern. "Your Majesty, are you unwell? Or do you perhaps not like us?" At that moment, Yi Rong noticed that these male models truly all had long legs, and each possessed the standard 18-pack abs. Overwhelmed by the sight, Yi Rong blushed crimson, a trickle of blood escaping her nose. The guard beside her, seeing this, was about to call for the imperial physician. From afar, Wei Ling noticed Yi Rong's condition. Could the deceased emperor be injured? Humph, the deceased emperor is truly troublesome. He then put on a robe and stepped out of the pool. Yi Rong covered her nose. How could she possibly admit that she had a nosebleed? Because she saw a handsome man and was experiencing a surge of youthful infatuation. She could only hurriedly explain to the guards that it was nothing, a minor injury, and nothing serious. Not giving up, Wei Ling pushed the guard aside. "Your Majesty, please stop being childish. Only after the doctor has thoroughly examined you, inside and out, top to bottom, can I be at ease." Yi Rong was immediately frightened and repeatedly bit her hand in refusal. But this opportunity was too good for Wei Ling to uncover the truth. He wouldn't give up. He turned and ordered someone to bring a doctor over immediately. Then he looked down at Yi Rong with a contemptuous sneer. "After all, your Majesty looks unwell." Everyone knew that at this moment, Yi Rong's second personality was captivated by Wei Ling's domineering handsomeness. "My lords, I'm going to faint. How can he be so handsome?" Yi Rong never dreamed that Yi Rong too could still be rambling at a time like this. Was she serious? Didn't she find this guy creepy? No way, she actually fainted. Suddenly, Yi Rong had a brilliant idea that I can pretend to faint and escape too. Time to test my acting skills. Yi Rong clutched her forehead, swayed her body, and moaned, "I'm dizzy." She then threw herself directly at Wei Ling. Wei Ling looked incredulously at Yi Rong in his arms. So, had he just walked into a trap? What was it like for the Empress to leave the palace to look for the Emperor, only to confess her love for another man? The Empress, along with her palace maids, spared no effort searching for a divine doctor in the remote mountains and forests. A young palace maid, deeply versed in palace intrigue, had doubts. "Your Majesty, is there a possibility that the Emperor's illness is lovesickness? A woman in love is always blind." The Empress believed what she saw. Absolutely impossible. My respected Emperor is still waiting for me to find him a peerless divine doctor to save him from death. As long as I can make the Emperor recover, then his eyes will only be on me. The Empress was still fantasizing about the beautiful life of being the sole favorite in the harem when a carrier pigeon landed on her head. Opening the letter, she was both pleased and angry. Pleased that the Emperor, angry that the Emperor had taken a liking to her older brother. As soon as he left the palace, his home was robbed. The Empress panicked and immediately returned to the palace with her maids. Meanwhile, Yi Rong, fearing that Wei Ling would discover the truth, fainted directly into his arms. She fainted peacefully, the upward curve of her lips showing her satisfaction with this clever plan. Wei Ling looked incredulously at this dog of an emperor. Without a second thought, he pushed Yi Rong away, dusting off non-existent dirt. Listening to the panicked cries around him, he thought, "These people are so annoying." The guard slapped Yi Rong's face with a ton of force. Yi Rong thought in exasperation, "Damn it, can you slap any lighter? Be careful, I might have you executed tomorrow." Wei Manor's guards were worried. "Master, we can't let the Emperor be carried out of the manor in such an ambiguous state." Wei Ling understood that if the Emperor died in Wei Manor, it would implicate the entire household. In the end, he had no choice but to abandon this investigation. With a murderous aura, he strode quickly to Yi Rong's side, scooped her up, and immediately sent word to the palace that His Majesty was seriously injured and unconscious, ordering the imperial physicians to stand by. Before anyone could react, he gave Yi Rong a princess carry and quickly boarded the carriage. Wei Ling drove the horses at full speed. The two were separated by the distance of the Yangtze River, and Yi Rong, who was pretending to be unconscious, actually fell asleep, looking at the hand that still clung to his clothes, even though she was unconscious. Wei Ling was furious again. He drew his sword. "This emperor still wants to cling to me? One day, I will chop off this wandering hand." Suddenly, he heard Yi Rong unconsciously murmur, "Mother." It turned out Yi Rong was dreaming of her mother selling handkerchiefs to earn money to buy her lots of candied hawthorns. Being with her mother, even hardship was happiness. A child with a mother is a treasure. This seemed to touch the softest part of Wei Ling's heart. Soon after, the guard announced their arrival at the palace. He discovered that the figures in the carriage were tightly embraced, bound together. The ministers arrived at the palace one after another to begin their workday, only to find the emperor absent. For a time, everyone was talking about it. "My lord, I heard that His Majesty went to Lord Wei Ling's residence. He didn't inform you, his adoptive father. How improper." Listening to everyone's seemingly concerned but actually malicious gossip, the left prime minister quickly defended his son.my son is grown up. He's no longer the child who follows me around begging for sweets. However, on matters concerning the emperor, he and I are one mind. I have no fear. Even so, my lord, you should still be careful. After all, it's hard to guard against treachery from within. Young Master Wei has always been deeply thoughtful and difficult to fathom. If not for this, he wouldn't have been able to climb to the position of the current Prime Minister's confidant from the status of a mere book boy. Before the confidant could finish, the Prime Minister waved his hand to silence him. He said confidently, "This Prime Minister has faith. Linger will not betray me." At this moment, Wei Ling's carriage had already stopped at the palace gates. The guard was curious. The carriage had been stopped for a while, but why hadn't his master gotten out? A group of ministers at the palace gate were watching him. Little did they know, Yi Rong had drooled in her sleep, soiling Wei Ling's clothes. The delay was due to him changing. When everyone saw Wei Ling carrying Yi Rong out of the carriage, they appeared so loving and affectionate, so intimate. The air suddenly fell silent. All the ministers stared in disbelief. A moment later, the air crackled with whispers. Could the rumors about His Majesty and the Imperial Guard be true? It was hard to believe. Even the left Prime Minister, who had been so confident just moments before, now seemed to have lost his assurance. Finally, as Wei Ling carried Yi Rong through a deserted corridor, his face showed a look of disgust. He immediately thrust Yi Rong at a guard. "Take this dog away." The emperor leaving the palace was already an act of grace. What's the point of keeping up this charade? A loyal subordinate knows when to speak. The guard quickly soothed him. "Please bear with it a little longer. After all, His Majesty was born in our residence. It's best not to cause any further complications." While Yi Rong slept, her second personality, Yi Rong too, emerged. She grabbed the physician's examining hand and said coldly, "Let my beloved minister attend to me." This further fueled the left Prime Minister's suspicions. Meanwhile, he urged Wei Ling, "His Majesty trusts you deeply. You should cherish this trust." Wei Ling saw right through the left Prime Minister's thoughts. Why adoptive father? His Majesty is delirious. I am still clear-headed. I hope you won't overthink this and fall into someone else's trap. Meanwhile, Yi Rong too in bed was exuding pheromones towards Wei Ling. Even if the left Prime Minister wanted to believe Wei Ling, he couldn't help but suspect that the emperor's fleeing the wedding and visiting Wei Ling was a dangerous sign. If one day Wei Ling abandons Prince Yangon and becomes a royalist, he absolutely cannot be spared. Forced by the circumstances, Wei Ling sat down and said against his will, "His Majesty's delirium warrants a call for the imperial physician." Yi Rong too quietly reached out and took Wei Ling's hand, murmuring sweet nothings, "As long as my beloved minister stays with me, any illness will be cured." Wei Ling quickly withdrew his hand, stopping Yi Rong too's inappropriate behavior. Seeing that her advances were thwarted, she impatiently gestured to the ministers. "Speak if you have something to say. If not, leave." The left Prime Minister immediately reported, "Recently, the northern region has suffered a locust plague. The people are suffering and have lost their homes. I hope the granaries can be opened soon to relieve the disaster victims." At this moment, Yi Rong too was like a different person, only wanting to flirt with Wei Ling and having no time to listen to these serious matters. "Opening the granaries is something you ministers can handle. I am unwell today, so I would like to invite one of you to stay in the palace to assist me in handling these matters." Although it was Yi Rong too who caused the trouble, Yi Rong had to bear the consequences because they shared the same body. The Empress Dowager, upon learning that Yi Rong was still entangled with Wei Ling, was furious. "What is going on? I thought you understood your mission as emperor. I also told you to keep your distance from Wei Ling. In this world, no one will believe you except yourself." Yi Rong, the original personality, didn't want anything to do with Wei Ling. At this moment, she could only admit her mistake to avoid further repercussions. The Empress Dowager, fearing Yi Rong wouldn't change, threatened again, "If you continue to be entangled with Wei Ling, I can't guarantee who will bear the punishment." Yi Rong was terrified, afraid that Yi Rong too's recklessness would implicate her mother. She quickly lowered her head and apologized again, promising to change. Cold sweat dripped down her face. She understood deeply that the palace was not a place for her to act recklessly. Finally, she made a morally questionable decision. "Mother, in truth, my actions today were to sow discord between Prince Yongan's faction and Wei Ling. If the court believes there is something between us, Prince Yangon will no longer trust Wei Ling as before." The Empress Dowager expressed doubt. "Wei Ling is Prince Yongan's man. That old fox won't abandon Wei Ling, his pawn, just because of your nonsense." But her confidant had a different opinion. "Your Majesty, you are overthinking it. Even if he doesn't believe it today, he will one day. A lie, repeated often enough, becomes the truth. Where there's smoke, there's fire. We just need to plant the seed of doubt." Yi Rong knew she had finally passed this hurdle. No matter what, she had to get through this lie. She couldn't let her mother be implicated. Neither the Empress Dowager nor Yi Rong knew that their conversation was overheard by Wei Ling. His influence had already infiltrated every corner of the palace. If you dare breathe a word of this to anyone, I will personally teach you how to keep your mouth shut. The eunuch knew how to conduct himself. He immediately pledged his loyalty. Rest assured, Your Excellency, I don't remember anything. I have never seen you before. Back in her chambers, Yi Rong collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. She decided to teach Yi Rong a lesson. Otherwise, who knew what trouble she would cause next? Suddenly, a cute, chibi version of herself appeared before her eyes. For a moment, she couldn't scold her. She just pouted and muttered, "You almost got me killed. Why did you bring Wei Ling into the palace? It's like inviting a wolf into the sheepfold. You're practically begging him to discover I'm a woman." Yi Rong, too, acted completely devoted, as if thinking only of Yi Rong. "You idiot. Who do you think I brought Wei Ling into the palace for? It's to protect you." Seeing Yi Rong too's feigned righteousness despite her obvious ulterior motives, Yi Rong immediately made a face like she could eat her alive. "Bullshit. Isn't it because you Lecher, are lusting after his good looks?" This woman, in order to gain a man's favor, endured the scorching sun for 4 hours. All because this man, named Wei Ling, was her lifeline in the palace. Lying in bed after suffering from heat stroke, Yi Rong still worried about Wei Ling's accommodations in the palace. Has Master arranged everything properly? She urged the palace maids to fan her more vigorously, complaining, "I'm practically melting." Taking advantage of Yi Rong's closed eyes, Xiao Mei disdainfully muttered, "Standing under the sun all afternoon without a parasol, just to save face. It's no wonder you got heat stroke." At that moment, Wei Ling approached cheerfully, inquiring about Yi Rong's condition from the palace maids. "Why is your majesty suffering from heat stroke?" The dazed Yi Rong, thinking the imperial physician had arrived, immediately described her symptoms: dry mouth, nausea, probably from the sun. She then grabbed Wei Ling's hand. "Imperial physician, why are you standing so far away? Come examine me." Caught off guard, Wei Ling was pulled closer to Yi Rong. They were so close they could smell each other's breath. Things were about to get intimate. Suddenly, a loud crash. The Empress, covered in mud, appeared. She stared in disbelief. "Your Majesty? Brother, you too." She seemed to confirm the rumors she'd heard. Yi Rong and Wei Ling froze, unsure how to explain the situation. Finally, Wei Ling spoke up. "Your Majesty, please don't misunderstand." Lost in thought, the Empress recalled the time before her wedding. She had wanted to marry the Emperor's older brother, but he refused. The family had wanted her to marry the Prince of Yong'an. "Sister, you know the Emperor's stance on our father. Marrying him is not a wise move. I refuse to marry the Prince of Yong'an. Now, seeing my brother-in-law create this scandal with His Majesty to sabotage our relationship, oh, it pains me to see these men fighting over me. I must chan them." The Empress's thought process was truly unique. Unaware of the Empress's inner thoughts, the weak Yi Rong crawled up to her, expressing concern and wiping the mud and suspicious drool from her mouth. Unwilling to be a third wheel, Wei Ling excused himself. "Since Your Majesty and the Empress have matters to discuss, I shall take my leave." "Hold on." The Empress grabbed Wei Ling's sleeve. "That I will be staying in His Majesty's chambers tonight. I hope brother-in-law will not disturb us. Even if you have 1,000 reasons, I am now a father. I won't let you ruin my relationship with His Majesty," she declared to Wei Ling, then pulled Yi Rong in for a kiss. Confused, Yi Rong was still trying to figure out what the Empress was doing when she was pushed out of the room, followed by Wei Ling. Yi Rong, even more bewildered, heard the Empress say, "Relationships aren't a one-person affair. You two should act like men and talk things out." She slammed the door shut and left, leaving the two standing there, looking at each other. They both agreed. Women were hard to understand. Wei Ling then excused himself, saying he had matters to attend to. Yi Rong, feeling sleepy, decided to go to bed. She couldn't sleep with the Empress tonight, nor could she go to the side chamber with Wei Ling. "I guess I'll just squeeze in with Xiao Mei." Suddenly, she heard Wei Ling's voice. "Your Majesty, I've instructed the kitchen to prepare some white fungus soup to help with the heat stroke. Please drink it before you sleep." Is he trying to poison me? Yi Rong wondered. She then noticed something Wei Ling had dropped. Picking it up, she saw it was a white handkerchief embroidered with small flowers. "What is this? He uses a flowery handkerchief? I could embroider this with my toes." Yi Rong felt like someone was following her, but saw no one when she turned around. Am I just paranoid from the heat stroke? She wondered, dismissing her suspicions. She then dismissed the guards and palace maids. Alone, she entered the 1,000-square-foot pool to bathe. A bath after a long day feels so good. Being the Emperor is great. Even my bath is this luxurious. She remembered how she used to have to gather enough firewood just to take a proper bath in a wooden tub with her mother helping her scrub. Missing her mother, Yi Rong started to cry. Tears streamed down her face. Ignoring this won't solve anything. Wiping her tears, she turned her longing into motivation that I can't be discouraged. I have to find a way to get my mother out. Suddenly, a slight noise came from the window. A shadowy figure quickly passed by. It's the dead of night. Could there be another treacherous subject trying to harm me? Meanwhile, Wei Ling, working late into the night, took the report of Yi Rong's daily routine from guard. He was still pondering why the emperor kept visiting the Imperial Medical Academy, wondering if she had taken a liking to someone there, when he suddenly heard shouts of "Catch the assassin." Listening more closely, he recognized Yi Rong's voice. He immediately jumped up. That's the emperor's voice. Quickly informed the guards to lock down the inner palace. On the other side, Yi Rong was fleeing in a panic. Damn it, I don't want to die. I haven't gotten my money's worth yet. It's too much of a loss to kick the bucket now. Xiao Mei help. She suddenly ran into a human wall and immediately backed up. It was Wei Ling. He quickly reached out and caught Yi Rong. When Yi Rong saw who it was, she felt a surge of relief. Wait, why is he looking at me like that? Just as Yi Rong was bewildered, she suddenly remembered something important. In her haste to escape, she had forgotten to bind her chest. Instantly, a blush crept up her face. Did he discover the truth? What should I do? Yi Rong worried that her true gender would be revealed, but the oblivious Wei Ling misinterpreted her flustered state. Oh no, did he realize I'm a fake? Wei Ling looked at the emperor before him, squirming and frowning. He snorted and suddenly let go. Putting on a woman's act all day? Is he doing this on purpose? Losing her support, Yi Rong tumbled to the ground, hitting her head. The pain shot through her body. You jerk, I'll get you back one day. So what if I'm doing it on purpose? Wei Ling responded lazily. Forgive me, Your Majesty. I was late in coming to your rescue. Security in the palace is paramount. You few, go and see if the thief left any traces. Soon, a guard brought over a few pieces of broken tile. Sir, we found these broken tiles on the ground. Wei Ling took a look. There were 3 black rice grains on them. Within 3 seconds, the genius Wei Ling knew who the assassin was. Curious, Yi Rong peeked from behind Wei Ling to see the clues on the tile, but Wei Ling pushed her away dismissively. Since they stepped on the glazed tiles while leaping over the roofs, they must not be far. Men, search the entire inner palace. Suddenly, Wei Ling noticed something jump from the roof. It landed, quite coincidentally, on Yi Rong's head. Unaware of what it was, Yi Rong felt the added weight and her scalp tingle. A torrent of panicked thoughts flooded her mind. What is this? Am I being held hostage? Is it a knife? Am I going to die? There's an assassin. Wei Ling watched Yi Rong run around, yelling like a lunatic. Not bad, quite the performance. The next moment, Yi Rong crashed into his arms. The spectator suddenly became part of the show. The surrounding guards, looking bewildered, exchanged shocked glances. To avoid being executed by their superiors, those with high emotional intelligence discreetly looked away. Just then, they saw Xiao Mei rushing over anxiously. As she brushed past the guards, she panicked. Why are they standing like that? What's going on? Is His Majesty in danger? Meanwhile, Yi Rong was in a heated argument with the orange cat. Suddenly, a handkerchief floated down from her person. It was the one she had picked up the other day. It landed on Wei Ling's now frozen face. Both the person and the cat instantly called a truce, sensing a sudden chill emanating from Wei Ling. Have you ever seen a minister who would execute the emperor over a handkerchief? Wei Ling gripped one end of the handkerchief tightly. Let go. Yi Rong refused that I found this. It's mine. As the two struggled, the handkerchief ripped in two. Yi Rong stared blankly at the half in her hand, speechless. The cat on her head, with its animal instincts, was the first to sense Wei Ling's rapidly rising fury. It bolted. Its life depended on it. Wei Ling, looking at the half-handkerchief, was overcome with despair. It was his last connection to his mother. The handkerchief had been embroidered by his mother when he was a child. His runaway mother had promised to make him new clothes once the embroidery was finished. But then his mother died. A merciless fire had destroyed everything. The only thing left is this handkerchief embroidered with escape. I was so naive to think that once I finished embroidering it, Mother would come back to embroider clothes. I so Chin Chung Ly prayed to the heavens to grant my wish. Now everything has been ruined by you, this wretched emperor. Wei Ling glared at Yi Rong with murderous intent. Just as her rage was about to explode, Xiao Mei intervened, standing between them. She loudly questioned what His Excellency was doing, reminding him that this was the inner palace and urging him not to cause chaos. The nearby guards also tried to persuade him. They pleaded with His Excellency to calm down. However, Wei Ling, consumed by fury, grabbed Xiao Mei's throat. He sneered, "Inner palace? So what? I'll do as I please today. What can you or your Empress Dowager do?" Xiao Mei, ever the loyal palace maid, even in the face of danger, didn't forget to warn Yi Rong, "Your Majesty, run." "Wei Ling, aren't you afraid of being infamous for thousands of years? You're still my subject. How dare you be so insolent?" The enraged Wei Ling let out a cold laugh. "Infamous for thousands of years? I like to see that." Meanwhile, Pei Shaoqing, the big boss of the palace, had already learned of the incident from his informant. Wei Ling really clashed with Ronger. "Yes, Your Highness. The Emperor's palace is in chaos. Do you need me to intervene?" "No need to alert them. Just ensure Ronger's safety in secret." Pei Shaoqing respectfully withdrew after receiving his instructions. No one could have imagined that an ordinary handkerchief could drive Wei Ling to madness. Wei Ling, having lost his usual composure, wanted to destroy everything in sight. Seeing that Xiao Mei couldn't break free from Wei Ling's grip, Yi Rong, with all her might, bit down hard on Wei Ling's arm. Wei Ling, looking at Yi Rong, who seemed even more frantic than himself, loosened his grip on Xiao Mei's throat slightly. But this wasn't the end of the matter. Regaining his senses, Wei Ling flung Yi Rong away with all his strength. "Your Majesty, your little game should stop now." The one accusing others of playing games was the one losing control. This official is committing treason and attempted murder. Yi Rong suddenly realized that the key to calming Wei Ling's rage was the handkerchief. "I see the remnants of the escape embroidery on the silk. Although there are traces of repair, it's easy to see the exquisite skill of the original embroiderer." Hearing Yi Rong praise her mother's embroidery, Wei Ling couldn't help but ask, "When did Your Majesty become so knowledgeable about embroidery?" Yi Rong ignored Wei Ling's question and offered, "If you release Xiao Mei, I promise to give you another escape embroidery within 3 days." Wei Ling was convinced that no one in the world could replicate his mother's escape embroidery. He believed this was just a ploy by the emperor to stall for time. However, it was a good opportunity to back down. He released Xiao Mei. 3 days later, "Bring the embroidery to Meng Tianfang, Your Majesty." "I've never heard of Your Majesty associating with embroiderers outside the palace." Yi Rong, however, only wanted to check if Xiao Mei was injured and couldn't be bothered with Wei Ling. But fearing another outburst, she simply said, "Can I have a secret admirer?" "But they're a recluse, so it's not easy to commission their work. Fortunately, I have a connection with them. If I ask, they'll definitely provide the best embroidery." With that, the crisis caused by the ruined handkerchief was temporarily resolved. Yi Rong's second personality immediately emerged to complain. "That was terrifying. I've never seen His Excellency so angry. I was scared out of my wits." "You weren't the one talking. You seem very familiar with that lunatic. Where were you when my life was on the line? Since you admire Wei Ling so much, do you know what that escape embroidery looks like?" Yi Rong's love-struck second personality was dealt blow after blow. Finally, she gave up. "How would I know? I'm inside your body." This drove Yi Rong completely mad. Even her biggest fan didn't know this secret. "How am I supposed to embroider it if I've never seen the original escape?" Meanwhile, on the roof, Wei listened to Yi Rong's self-muttering, finding this eccentric emperor quite amusing. Yi Rong held up the blank white cloth, utterly dejected. "If only I could see the original, even just a glance." Yi Rong's second personality couldn't stand her despondency. "Why don't you ask the Empress Dowager? Isn't there a saying about knowing your enemy?" The Empress Dowager and Wei Ling are rivals. She must have already had people gather all of Wei Ling's personal effects. Yi Rong shot up from the bed, right? "That's a good idea." Suddenly, they heard noises coming from the room. Both of them looked up at the roof, certain that the intruder was up there. On the roof, Pei Shaoqing smiled. "Oh, I've been discovered." Yi Rong, furious, flew out the window. "You little thief. I've had enough of you. I'll get you." The passing palace maids were shocked, silently wondering if the emperor had lost her mind. They didn't dare ask, nor did they dare speak. Yi Rong was still ranting and raving, gesticulating wildly. Unfortunately, her fighting prowess was non-existent, making the palace maids sympathize even more with the emperor. Suddenly, a wad of paper smacked Yi Rong in the face. Unfolding it, she saw the name Meng Tianfang written on it. But Yi Rong realized it was her own handwriting. There was only one possibility for someone who could replicate her handwriting perfectly. Like the Empress Dowager once said, someone trained like this directly connected to her deceased brother's 13 assassins. But ever since her brother's death, haven't the 13 assassins vanished in a thin air? Just now, he definitely heard our conversation. Could this be a clue for me? Yi Rong immediately clung to this lead. It seems I must leave the palace tomorrow. The next day, Yi Rong left the palace, along with Xiao Mei and the Empress. No matter how Yi Rong explained that her outing was for official business, the Empress insisted on coming along, feigning curiosity about the embroiderer's skills. But her real purpose was to prevent Wei Ling from meeting the embroiderer, eliminating any potential rival for the Emperor's favor. Xiao Mei quickly explained that the embroiderer wasn't actually at Meng Tianfang. The Emperor's outing was simply to choose fabrics for the Empress Dowager's birthday robes. Hearing it was a shopping trip, the Empress immediately brightened. Yi Rong and Xiao Mei exchanged knowing glances. They would have to play it by ear. Unexpectedly, as soon as they arrived at Meng Tianfang, they ran into Wei Ling, who was also there that day. As Yi Rong and the other two walked down the street, they spotted Wei Ling and the left prime minister from afar, also at Meng Tianfang. The Empress was delighted to see her father and hero out shopping. Thinking that finally someone would carry her bags, she started to call out to them. Before she could finish, Yi Rong clamped a hand over her mouth. In the distance, Wei Ling and the left prime minister turned around but didn't see anyone calling them. The left prime minister asked, puzzled, Linga, what's wrong? I thought I heard Omping's voice. Must have misheard. Worried about being discovered, Yi Rong and the other two quickly ducked into a side street. Today was a secret investigation, and they couldn't allow any interference. The Empress, however, was baffled as to why she couldn't see her father. Xiao Mei had to improvise, madam. We're keeping this a secret from the Empress Dowager. We're picking out her birthday gift. If the left prime minister finds out, the surprise will be ruined. The Empress, whose mind had been solely focused on shopping, only then remembered the real reason for their outing. Oh, my apologies, she mumbled, blushing. Yi Rong and Xiao Mei communicated seamlessly through gestures. They went in. It's our turn. Having received his instructions, the left prime minister asked Wei Ling in a gentle tone. I heard you had a disagreement with the emperor yesterday, just over a handkerchief. Wei Ling slowly picked up his teacup. News travels fast. It's true. That handkerchief, I embroidered it based on childhood memories. Hearing this explanation, the left prime minister offered gentle comfort. Linga, your mother's embroidery was all destroyed in that fire. There's no need to dwell on the past. Although Wei Ling knew he couldn't let it go, he was only the left prime minister's adopted son. He had to obey. The left prime minister, seeing Wei Ling's expression, knew he couldn't truly force the issue. He decided to compromise. You always say you'll obey, but when do you ever truly follow through? As long as you don't neglect your duties, I'll let you be. How is the emperor doing lately? Outside, Yi Rong pressed her ear against the wall, straining to hear, but it was no use. This tea house is soundproof. No wonder there are no guards. She vaguely heard the words doctor and original burned. Yi Rong suggested they quickly decide on their next move, as Xiao Mei wouldn't be able to distract the empress for much longer. Inside the shop, the empress had fallen in love with the place within seconds. This one, and this one. Wrap them all up. Shopping was indeed one of a woman's greatest joys. The sales attendant showered her with compliments. Madam, you have such exquisite taste. Both parties were thoroughly pleased with each other. Suddenly, Yi Rong's voice came from behind. Yi Rong suggested they look for peach blossom embroidery samples. This way, they could not only win the Empress Dowager's favor, but also identify skilled embroiderers specializing in peach blossoms. Meng Tianfang provided excellent customer service. When Yi Rong requested to meet the embroiderer, the owner promptly brought forth their most skilled artisan. The owner began to boast. Not only are they skilled in peach blossom embroidery, they're the best in the area. Even the esteemed left prime minister has sung their praises. The left prime minister praised them? Which piece? The owner stammered, unable to maintain the charade. Yi Rong thought to herself, if I hadn't spent time with that almost pathologically picky Wei Ling, I might have actually believed you. All right, leave the embroidery. I'll take a closer look. Meanwhile, the Empress was captivated by the peach blossom fabric samples. She even considered poaching the embroiderer for the palace. Xiao Mei calmly reminded her that the embroiderer might not be willing to enter the palace. Besides, the fixed salary offered in the palace was a far cry from the exorbitant rates paid by Meng Tianfang. As she spoke, she looked back to Yi Rong for support, only to find her staring blankly at a distant peach tree, muttering to herself. herself. I heard that Meng Tianfang, in order to have the embroiderers create outstanding work that would satisfy the prime minister, specifically planted a peach tree in the courtyard. These embroiderers have to take time every day to look at this peach tree. They practice their embroidery techniques by observing it. That's why they can embroider such exquisite sleeves. The work is clearly lifelike, so what's there to criticize? Even if I were to embroider them, they wouldn't necessarily be any better. From this perspective, the problem isn't whether the embroidery is exquisite or not. Xiao Mei immediately understood the implication, but she didn't know what to do next. Unbeknownst to them, the Empress, unable to join the conversation, sulked by banging on the table to show her annoyance. In the end, they would need to buy more embroidery to appease her anger. That evening, at the royal training grounds, Wei Ling was curious. Why not practice swordsmanship during the day? Why did she prefer to practice at night? Although practicing during the day wouldn't hurt the eyes, many things were more interesting in the dark. At night, one could let their imagination run wild. One could even pretend the sword hilt was the emperor. Wei Ling drew her bow, frowned slightly, and released the arrow, hitting the bullseye. It was as if she had pinned the emperor to the target. Shuo Feng was certain that his master was troubled tonight. Shuo Feng, don't you think the emperor sometimes acts too much like a woman? These words shocked Shuo Feng. How is that possible? If he were a princess, how could he have deceived the late emperor? However, Wei Ling was convinced the emperor had been reborn. She had personally witnessed the emperor's demise. She had thought more than once that perhaps the current emperor had been unknowingly replaced. After all, incidents like the Lingwente were not uncommon throughout history. Shuo Feng still found it hard to comprehend. Could there really be two people in this world with the same appearance and voice? And one of them a woman? It's precisely because it's unbelievable that we entered the palace. We must investigate this thoroughly. The night is perfect for heart-to-heart talks. Shuo Feng suddenly became curious. Why do you hate His Majesty so much? Is it simply because of the bullying you suffered as a child? Wei Ling's expression instantly darkened, her eyes flashing red. You know, I hate people who overstep their boundaries. She secretly chuckled. That scoundrel suspects my identity. I shouldn't have taken a shortcut. She hoped she wouldn't be discovered. Heaven seemed not to have heard Yi Rong's plea. Wei Ling immediately sensed someone in the tree. She raised her hand and drew her bow again. The arrow flew like the wind towards Yi Rong's hiding place in the tree. The sharp arrow pierced straight through Yi Rong's hair ribbon and lodged into the branch. Yi Rong was frightened out of her wits. That scoundrel is truly perceptive and ruthless. That was close. I almost died. Wei Ling thought it was some petty thief. She was about to ask who was in the tree, when Yi Rong parted the branches, revealing a smiling face. Seeing who it was, Wei Ling froze. Shuo Feng, wanting to resolve the crisis, swiftly drew his sword. Wei Ling, not wanting to make a scene, immediately stopped him. Shuo Feng obediently sheathed his sword. Wei Ling crossed her arms and said sarcastically, "Your Majesty, how thoughtful of you to be enjoying the cool breeze alone in a tree so late at night." Yi Rong complained helplessly, "Sigh, I just can't seem to shake this sleepwalking habit of mine. Once I fall asleep, I don't know anything. And now I've even climbed a tree. No wonder I couldn't sleep soundly." She then prepared to jump down. However, she stumbled. Such a clumsy emperor was a first for Wei Ling and Shuo Feng. A dizzy Yi Rong heard Wei Ling's solicitous voice above her. The chilling tone reminded her of a previous time when Wei Ling had used the same voice to express concern, only to ruthlessly drown her. Trembling, she scrambled up and backed away, saying she was fine and needed to return to the palace. "It's getting late and the dew is heavy. Allow this official to escort your Majesty back to the palace." Yi Rong recoiled in fear, repeatedly refusing. "Who knows if you're escorting me back to the palace or to the afterlife?" Finally, under Wei Ling's watchful gaze, she fled back to the palace. Shuo Feng was puzzled by Wei Ling's decision to let Yi Rong go. Won't this alert her? But Wei Ling had other ideas that a guilty conscience, no matter how well hidden, will always reveal itself. She then warned Shuo Feng not to be reckless, or he would lose his job. The next morning, Yi Rong, plagued by nightmares, struggled to get up with dark circles under her eyes. She summoned her attendants to help her wash up. The changing room was empty. Yi Rong saw the palace maids rushing out. Curious, she went out to see what was happening, but was jostled out by the excited crowd. It turned out the palace maids had learned that the imperial guard Pei Shaoqing was coming to the inner palace. They had all transformed into fervent fans, eager to meet their idol. Yirong was left behind like a discarded rag. Puzzled, she suddenly saw a mirror appear before her. Yirong couldn't believe the ghastly creature in the mirror was herself. Frightened, she backed away from the mirror. Her appearance was quite comical, causing laughter among the guards in the Linha Palace. Your Majesty is up early. The sun is already high in the sky. Did you get beaten by a ghost? Meanwhile, Pei Shaoqing was surrounded by numerous female fans. The palace maids, eyes sparkling, were enthusiastic and fiery, all hoping for a chance to speak with him. Pei Didi is Ahua's little brother. If you have any questions, you can come to me. Ahua, you've already claimed 18 little brothers. How old is Imperial Guard Pei? Is he married? He was originally one of the Emperor's 13 shadow guards, only answering to the Emperor. Now that the Emperor has changed, so has his work, moving from behind the scenes to the forefront. With his exceptional abilities and handsome appearance, he's received a warm welcome from his female colleagues. Even the Emperor is curious about him. Although he enjoys the enthusiasm of his colleagues, he only desires the Emperor's approval. To this end, he put on his most charming smile as he reported to Yirong. Yirong was instantly captivated by the bright smile. She immediately welcomed her new subordinate. A cool voice came from the side. Long time no see. Commander Pei, I trust you've been well. During your absence, His Majesty has been in frequent danger. Commander Pei, you should kneel and accept the blame for your negligence. Pei Shaoqing wasn't disheartened. Speaking of which, this subordinate must thank Minister Wei. Without your company, how could His Majesty be safe and sound? Yirong, standing between the two, immediately sensed an invisible tension. Ultimately, she favored the new subordinate. After all, this subordinate was exactly the cute and obedient type that Yirong liked most, who knew Wei Ling, to attract Yirong's attention, would sarcastically remark, His Majesty is truly benevolent. Don't forget your promise to this minister. Watching Wei Ling gradually approach, Yirong broke out in a cold sweat. Pei Shaoqing couldn't bear to see his emperor pressured. He stepped forward, shielding Yirong. Shuo Feng, also unwilling to be outdone, protectively stood before Wei Ling, confronting Pei Shaoqing. This is none of your concern. Just as the two were about to clash, Wei Ling and Yirong simultaneously called for them to stand down. Shuo Feng reluctantly walked away. Yirong said she wouldn't forget her promise and indicated that she had prepared a foolproof plan. Wei Ling was suspicious but didn't say anything more. It turned out Yirong's foolproof plan, step 1, was to offer 3 copper coins. She prayed to the god of wealth that Wei Ling would be blinded and fall for her outstanding beauty. Yirong too thought Yirong was too stingy, offering only 3 coins for such a big favor. Not even 10 people would agree, let alone a god. Yirong, her plan exposed, angrily scolded Yirong too. Although she also felt it wasn't a foolproof plan, she said, it's not like there's no other way. It's just a bit risky. I'll deal with Wei Ling alone. Xiao Mei will stay in the palace to handle any emergencies. You be careful too. Don't accidentally cross my path. Suddenly, Xiao Mei's voice was heard. Commander Pei, why are you back? Xiao Mei had warned them of someone approaching. Pei Shaoqing gave Xiao Mei a bright smile. Sister Xiao Mei, long time no see. Are they acquaintances? Xiao Mei, you know him too? Xiao Mei quickly explained, Your Majesty, Commander Pei answers to the Empress Dowager. He's one of our own. Now that Your Majesty and Minister Wei are getting closer, the Empress Dowager, fearing for Your Majesty's safety, recalled Commander Pei. Pei Shaoqing respectfully replied. This subordinate was previously ordered to leave the palace to investigate the matter of the former crown prince's imperial gift. The matter was of great importance. The Empress Dowager also feared that Your Majesty, knowing too much, would invite danger, so she didn't inform you beforehand. Please forgive me, Your Majesty. Yirong suddenly became curious. There are twice as many guards on duty today. Are they all Commander Pei's men? Pei Shaoqing frowned slightly, and since the 13 were disbanded, this subordinate's position was also revoked. These men looked like they were temporarily assigned. Shuo Feng soon arrived with a group of men to report. There was an assassin in the palace earlier. Minister Wei, concerned for Your Majesty's safety, ordered this subordinate to deploy men for protection. Yirong was truly worried for her own safety. That Wei scoundrel is having me watched. Xiao Mei questioned, where is Minister Wei? Why didn't he come himself? Shuo Feng pretended not to hear the emperor. This subordinate still has the key and will take his leave. Yirong and the others could only watch him go. Suddenly, Xiaomei noticed Shuo Feng's arm was injured. She turned and alerted Yi Rong. Your Majesty, Minister Wei has already left. Our people are also in position. Should your Majesty depart immediately? Yi Rong was worried. Her plan had been discovered by Wei Ling. Now she could only improvise. Meanwhile, Wei Ling had just entered Meng Tianfang's establishment. He asked the proprietor, "Is that embroiderer Xionyang one of your people?" "She is not. His Majesty's carriage brought her to the capital just 2 days ago." "However, Minister, that Xionyang said he might want to see her departing geese embroidery before entering." An hour earlier, in the palace, Xiaomei looked at the half-finished embroidery. "Is this too risky, Your Majesty? And your departing geese is only half-finished. How will it intersect?" "Don't worry. Everything is going according to plan." Yi Rong then turned and called out, "Guard Pei, are you ready?" Immediately, someone appeared. It was someone who looked exactly like Yi Rong. It turned out Yi Rong's plan was to have Guard Pei impersonate her, while she disguised herself as the embroiderer Xionyang to determine Wei Ling's intentions. Xiaomei was still worried. "Your Majesty, if you dress as a woman, won't Wei Ling suspect your voice?" Yi Rong replied, "I have a skill that can mimic voices. There's no need to worry." But simply changing her voice wasn't enough. She also needed a convincing bust. When Wei Ling and his men entered the room, they saw scattered embroidery tools and no Xionyang. The proprietor immediately knelt down, terrified. "Minister Wei, please forgive me. She's not one of our people at Meng Tianfang. Embroiderers are not supposed to be disturbed while working on their pieces. If I had known she would dare to run away like this, I would have reported her to the emperor and had her thrown out." Shuo Feng also stepped in front of Wei Ling, hoping to calm him down. Wei Ling coldly said, "Move aside." Then he forcefully kicked open the door. He saw a veiled woman standing in the room. Although he couldn't see her face, he could tell she was a stunning beauty with a graceful figure. Yi Rong greeted Wei Ling in her most dignified manner. Inwardly, she thought, "This is exhausting. This chest binding is suffocating me. I can't forget Xiaomei's warning. I have to be careful with every word." Wei Ling frowned slightly. He felt like he had seen this woman somewhere before. Shuo Feng, standing beside him, realized that the emperor was truly skilled at playing to people's desires. This wasn't just any embroiderer. She was Wei Ling's ideal type. Although Wei Ling was intrigued by the woman, he still needed an explanation. What is the meaning of this half-finished departing geese? Yi Rong hadn't expected Wei Ling to be so direct, catching her off guard. She couldn't formulate a response immediately. Seeing Wei Ling's expression darken, Shuo Feng quickly stepped in to offer an explanation, fearing they would be executed on the spot if Wei Ling wasn't satisfied. Yi Rong, not only unflustered, countered, "Even the minister hasn't seen the complete departing geese. How could this humble woman possibly embroider it?" Wei Ling was momentarily stunned. This woman was no ordinary person. How could she know the truth? He dismissed his attendants and looked at the woman again, more intently. Like most men, he asked the same question, "What is your name?" Wei Ling looked down at Yi Rong. "Who told you I haven't seen the departing geese?" Yi Rong stepped back, avoiding Wei Ling's gaze. So terrifying, she thought. Suddenly, a large hand gripped her chin. Wei Ling's presence loomed closer, his intense gaze seemingly trying to see through her. Yi Rong knew she couldn't let him dominate the situation. She had to push back, or the consequences could be severe. Ignoring the hand on her chin, she looked directly at Wei Ling that it wasn't difficult to deduce. This humble woman has compared the embroideries of the Xionyang's at Meng Tianfang. I discovered that while their departing geese embroideries are beautiful, they differ significantly from the restored piece His Majesty showed me, the one that belonged to the minister. Your departing geese is only half finished. No one would carry a half-finished piece with them, unless the minister himself didn't know what the finished departing geese looked like. Am I correct, Minister? Wei Ling was shocked. This Xionyang had discovered his secret. He bit his lip and let out a small chuckle that you're a clever Xionyang. Yi Rong inwardly relaxed, laying out a breath. I managed to fool him. Wei Ling turned his back to her. I indeed never saw the finished departing geese. It was burned in a fire. Yi Rong couldn't help but confirm. So this humble woman guessed correctly? Does this half-finished departing geese pass inspection? Wei Ling's eyes gleamed, indeed. But now I'm curious. Why are you wearing a veil? Yi Rong had a bad feeling. This guy is still suspicious of me. Wei Ling crossed his arms, a calm, and collected expression on his face. What secrets lie beneath your veil? Meanwhile, in the palace, Pei Shaoqing, impersonating the emperor, was leading everyone in group exercises, which were becoming increasingly chaotic. Only Xiao Mei was genuinely worried, carrying 2 fake emperors and fearing she'd bear all the responsibility alone. She glanced sideways and saw Shuo Feng returning to the palace. Realizing she had to stall him and prevent him from discovering the truth, she immediately put on an act and walked over to guard Pei. With a look, she signaled to guard Pei, who instantly understood. Watching Shuo Feng in the distance, a brilliant idea struck him. He closed his eyes, spun, leaped, and danced with abandon, completely letting loose. Suddenly, he collapsed. Ouch, I've twisted my back. Xiao Mei quickly summoned the physician. Shuo Feng paused his advance. Wei Ling questioned Yi Rong again. Why are you wearing a veil? Why aren't you speaking? Yi Rong panicked internally. What should I do? How can I deceive him? A gentle breeze rustled the branches of the peach tree outside. Peach blossoms drifted inside. In her desperation, Yi Rong suddenly remembered something. She could use her allergy to flowers to trick Wei Ling. She quickly picked up a peach blossom and ate it at my lord. If you insist on seeing my face, I cannot refuse. However, I am disfigured. Please don't be frightened. When I was young, the scar on my face was small, but as I grew older, it spread all over my body. Everyone who sees it says I'm an ominous monster. What woman wants to hear such things? Inwardly, Yi Rong was suffering, her allergy causing not only blossoms on her skin, but also intense itching. Wei Ling pulled back Yi Rong's sleeve. He placed a peach blossom petal on her arm. Peaches in full bloom, so dazzling and bright. Your body is covered in peach blossoms. Haven't you noticed? Yi Rong was stunned. Is this man trying to flatter me? The door opened, and Shuo Feng entered, whispering something in Wei Ling's ear. Wei Ling turned and spoke briefly to Shuo Feng. Before leaving, he invited Yi Rong to work at his residence. Looking at the empty room, Yi Rong couldn't believe her escape had ended so easily. Yi Rong's second personality wondered if she was falling for Wei Ling. The real reason was the unbearable itching from her allergic reaction. Finally, the dog feeder left and she could relax. Yi Rong's second personality thought, I remember Yi Rong was Yi Tsuehua. How did she become a peach blossom demon? Shuo Feng quickly returned to the emperor's chambers. Xiao Mei stood nervously at the door, arms outstretched, barring entry. The emperor injured his back and is being treated by the physician. He shouldn't be disturbed. Why are you so stubborn? Shuo Feng retorted, Xiao Mei, am I stubborn, or are you hiding something? He moved to push her aside. Seeing she couldn't stop him, Xiao Mei drew a short sword and held it to Shuo Feng's throat. The emperor has decreed that no one may enter without being summoned. Shuo Feng, you dare defy the imperial decree. Shuo Feng calmly replied, step aside. I don't want to hurt a woman. Xiao Mei ordered the other guards to seize him. Guards swarmed Shuo Feng, who spun away. Xiao Mei instinctively checked her sword. She found blood on it, but she wasn't injured. It could only be Shuo Feng's. Xiao Mei stared at him in disbelief. As they faced off, Yi Rong opened the door. What's all the commotion? She immediately noticed Xiao Mei's injured arm. Shuo Feng, how dare you bully my Xiao Mei? When Wei Ling returns, I'll have him punish you severely. Xiao Mei sighed in relief. The emperor's appearance meant their plan had worked. Behind her, guard Pei added fuel to the fire, taunting Shuo Feng. Shuo Feng, no matter how skilled you are, you're just a guard dog. If your majesty wants to punish someone, shouldn't the negligent master be punished as well? Shuo Feng immediately knelt. Why Lord was only concerned for your majesty's health and sent me back to attend to you. I was incompetent. Please punish me alone. Yi Rong knew this was a rare opportunity to fault Shuo Feng. Punishing him would also weaken Wei Ling's influence. It was a win-win situation. She was about to issue the decree. Wei Ling's voice carried from afar. Your Majesty, Shuo Feng is my personal guard. He acted rashly and offended you today. I will certainly not let him off lightly. Yi Rong, startled, quickly turned and hid. Guard Pei, unaware of the reason, assumed Yi Rong had a headache. Yi Rong could only stammer and acquiesce, pretending to have a headache. Wei Ling dramatically flung his cloak around himself. Ruthless even to his own people, he ordered Shuo Feng to be whipped 100 times on the spot. To show his sincerity, he personally administered the punishment. For ease of whipping, he removed his heavy outer robe. He raised the whip high in his hand. Crack, 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 crack. The whip landed on Shuo Feng's back, instantly breaking the skin. Xiao Mei couldn't bear to watch, frightened and sweating profusely. Guard Pei, seemingly enjoying the spectacle, craned his neck to get a better view. Yi Rong was the most shocked. This Wei Ling, so ruthless even to his own confidant. If he ever finds out I'm a peach blossom demon, I fear my fate will be 1,000 times worse than Shuo Feng's now. I absolutely cannot let him find out. Absolutely not. Whipping too quickly, the lash recoiled and struck Wei Ling's face, leaving a trace of blood. Unfazed, Wei Ling casually wiped it away, ordering Shuo Feng to cry out louder. He seemed like a demon returned from hell. Wei Ling taunted, "If you don't cry out, Xiao Mei will be heartbroken." Shuo Feng desperately tried to explain that there was nothing between him and Xiao Mei. At the door, Xiao Mei, hearing no response, pushed the door open a crack. "Strange, I thought I heard someone in here." Looking left and right, she walked into the room. She saw Shuo Feng sitting alone by the well. Xiao Mei hurried over to him and, without a word, grabbed his arm. Shuo Feng was bewildered. Why is this girl so forward? Doesn't she understand propriety between men and women? In reality, Xiao Mei had seen Shuo Feng's injuries and, pitying him, came to apply medicine. Looking at Shuo Feng's bloody back, her eyes filled with distress. "Now that only I'm here, you don't have to pretend. We were practically childhood sweethearts when you were training horses in the palace. You're so devoted to Lord Wei, yet he's so heavy-handed with you." Shuo Feng glanced meaningfully at the nearby screen. "He's doing this for my own good." Turning back to Xiao Mei, he said, "My punishment has nothing to do with you. Why did you bring me the ointment then? I just happened to have some left over and thought I'd do a good deed." Shuo Feng paused, then remembered Xiao Mei had also been injured before. Those injuries were his fault. He sincerely apologized to Xiao Mei. Hearing his apology, Xiao Mei suddenly burst into laughter. She realized Shuo Feng wasn't as unfeeling as she thought. Finished with the ointment, she left without looking back. Shuo Feng quickly thanked her again. Meanwhile, Yi Rong sat on the bed, staring at the peach blossom birthmark on her arm. As a child, everyone called it a demonic mark. No one had ever said it looked like a peach blossom. Suddenly, Xiao Mei appeared behind her. "Your Majesty, what are you looking at so happily?" Yi Rong quickly denied it, pulling the covers over her head. A muffled voice came from beneath. "All right, you can all leave now." Drifting off to sleep, she felt someone tuck a peach blossom behind her ear. Wei Ling, looking deeply affectionate, embraced Yi Rong. "Peach Blossom Demon, that name suits you." Looking at the handsome Wei Ling, Yi Rong's heart pounded uncontrollably. Suddenly, her veil began to slip. Panicked, she fumbled to fix it. Wei Ling held her veil in his hand, smirking. "Your Majesty, are you looking for this? How was my acting just now?" With that, he pressed a blade against Yi Rong's neck. Blood trickled down the sharp edge. Yi Rong screamed, "Ah, don't kill me." A sharp pain shot through her waist. She woke up. Why pour back? Hearing of Yi Rong's injury, the Empress Dowager and the Empress rushed to her chambers. The Empress Dowager scolded Yi Rong for being so clumsy at her age. The Empress, however, believed it was because she hadn't practiced her martial arts that morning. If she had honed her martial skills, she wouldn't have been injured. The two women lectured Yi Rong relentlessly, nearly driving her mad. Wei Ling, ever practical, considered the situation, asking Tai Yi about Yi Rong's condition and if she can attend. The Empress Dowager will arrive soon. Tai Yi, from a professional standpoint, believes Yi Rong needs rest recently. However, he praises Wei Ling for her concern for Yi Rong and affirms that with such a loyal and capable official like Wei Ling, Yi Rong will surely recover faster. At this moment, Wei Ling gives a meaningful smile. Since the imperial physician says so, this official will certainly fulfill her duty. Soon after, officials arrive one after another, bringing birthday gifts to the palace. From the Prince of Lu's residence, a pair of red sandalwood candlesticks. This section appears to be gibberish and is translated literally. Zhu Wen Jiao Tian Qi Xiang Duo Sun La Bao. From the Prince of Jun's residence, a set of this section also appears to be gibberish and is translated literally. Jing Xian Jiao Qi Ba Ji Xiang Wan Shang Tao. From the Chancellor's residence, a Jingxian red sandalwood, fruit, and flower-patterned rectangular box. Managed by the jewelry director. Dazzled by all sorts of treasures, the Empress in the palace maids carefully checked each gift. Even the experienced Empress was amazed by the numerous presents. According to protocol, these gifts should be inspected and selected by the Emperor personally. A grand presentation. However, Yi Rong has injured her back and can only lie in bed. Therefore, it's best for the Empress to represent her. The Empress immediately thought, what's mother-in-law's is my husband's, and what's my husband's is mine. All these treasures are mine. Suddenly, she noticed a peculiar flower among the gifts. It seemed to have an unusual scent. A palace maid explained that it was a treasure from Prince Yongin of Jingxian. Its name is also unique, Yumu. Legend says it was transformed from the life essence of the moon goddess. It healed the moon goddess's illness with its own flesh and blood. Therefore, Emperors consider this flower a symbol of utmost loyalty and Venus. However, this flower has aphrodisiac properties. It's also jokingly called Yu Zi Song Zi among the common people. The Empress's eyes widened at the mention of Song Zi. The Emperor is always distant. Should I take the initiative? Half a month later, the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet was held as scheduled. Because Yi Rong's back injury hadn't healed, she returned to the palace to rest after a brief appearance. At the banquet, Prince Yeoman's presentation of the Yu Nu flower was met with praise. However, Yi Rong, with her injured back, didn't return to the palace. Instead, she went to a secluded palace. Unexpectedly, Xiao Mei found her first, carrying a cloak. Without a word, she draped it over Yi Rong, complaining that the imperial physician said Yi Rong's back injury hadn't healed and she shouldn't sit or stand for long periods, especially in the evening dew. Yi Rong immediately admitted her mistake and accepted the criticism. She even made excuses, saying she was getting moldy from being confined due to the injury. Xiao Mei saw through her lies. If it weren't for sneaking out multiple times, she wouldn't be so restless. With this back injury, even Shuo Feng next door is more energetic. You're tired of being grounded. After Yi Rong repeatedly promised not to repeat the mistake, Xiao Mei was finally satisfied. Suddenly, Yi Rong felt that Xiao Mei was even more nagging than her mother. Just then, a head popped up beside her. The voice surprised her. "Your Majesty, how can you say that? Xiao Mei is concerned about your Majesty." Yi Rong jumped back in fright. Why does this Pei, the Imperial Guard, always appear so unexpectedly? Pei, the Imperial Guard, grinned, explaining it was an occupational habit, a professional hazard. Exasperated, Yi Rong changed the subject. She ordered him to quickly take advantage of Wei Ling's absence and go enjoy himself. "Your Majesty, there's a small pavilion by Shuiyang Lake near the Imperial Garden. What are you going there for?" Considering you my loyal guard, I'll tell you this money-making secret. Just take this golden cicada and place it there. It will absorb the essence of the sun and moon, and you'll reap a fortune. They soon arrived at their destination. Yi Rong was stunned by the abundance of flowers. This is indeed a valley that absorbs the essence of the sun and moon. Yi Rong had Pei keep watch while she went in alone to place the golden cicada. Once this golden cicada is placed, my fortune will surely flourish. Suddenly, a voice called out, "The Empress." Yi Rong's first reaction was, "The Empress? Did she change her mind and want the golden cicada back?" No way. With the Empress approaching, Yi Rong could only hide. There were several small wine bottles overturned in the flower bed. Preoccupied, Yi Rong didn't notice her footing. She stepped on a bottle and slipped forward. Grabbing for support, she bumped into someone that, "Oh, I'm so sorry, so sorry." They both looked up and saw each other. It was her, Nemesis. What do you do when fate forces you into close proximity with your rival? It was Wei Ling, who was already 8 parts drunk. Not only did she not recognize Yi Rong, but she also mistook her. One could say Wei Ling, having lost her usual reason, became even more rational. This was the closest she had ever come to the truth. Yi Rong waited, her whispered words muffled by the veil. It seemed as though she was lost in longing for her lover. However, Yi Rong knew these were just Wei Ling's drunken ramblings. Once sober and faced with reality, she would be content. 1,000 cups of strong drink. And Yi Rong's purpose today was to place the golden cicada, to absorb the essence of the sun and moon, so that it would yield a continuous harvest. The most urgent matter was to leave Wei Ling quickly and avoid the fire demon. Just as she was about to get up and push Wei Ling away, she found her body weak and limp. Yi Rong didn't know if it was the surrounding flowers, their fragrance making her whole body weak. As she struggled, the pollen she brushed against was constantly inhaled, causing an allergic reaction. She couldn't help but recall the origin of the whole affair. The Empress, knowing Yi Rong's love for art, gifted her a consecrated golden cicada. She also claimed that as long as this golden cicada absorbed the essence of the sun and moon, it would bless its owner with wealth. And the most spiritual place in the palace was this Shuiyang, overgrown with moon-like flowers. The actual truth was the Empress had heard that the moon-like flowers had aphrodisiac and fertility-enhancing properties. She guided Yi Rong to the Shuiyang chamber during the Empress Dowager's afternoon nap. In order to be alone with Yi Rong, The Empress mobilized everyone. Unfortunately, the first person Yi Rong encountered today was a drunken Wei Ling. At this moment, Wei Ling's eyes were filled with the image of the peach blossom demon. Her body was hot, sweat dripping down her cheeks. Under the influence of the moon-like flowers, she pressed Yi Rong down. However, the Empress's voice could be heard approaching from afar. Yi Rong immediately covered Wei Ling's mouth, signaling her not to make sound. She waited for the Empress to walk away before pushing Wei Ling off. Unexpectedly, Wei Ling grabbed her arm, pinning her down. Wei Ling lowered her head, wanting to get close.